started this gangster shit. Mr. Mother, thanks I get. Hello. I started this gangster shit. And Mr. Mother, thanks I get. Hello.
What a week it's been. One for the history books when it comes to comics. And speaking of history books, we're going to be talking about a book that, was announced about a month ago that caused this entire ripple to take place. I can't wait to show it to you. Can't wait to talk about it and to tell you about the very satisfying result of the conversation regarding this book. And I'll do that in a second. But before we begin, this is Comic Artist Pro Secrets. I am Ethan Van Sciver. Love it. 30-year veteran of the comic book industry and your friend. Would you do me a favor? If you're enjoying this content, you watch some of the other videos, you know what to expect by now, daily content, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. And also consider subscribing to this channel. It doesn't cost you nothing, but it helps to push back against the empire of shadow banning. The YouTube doesn't want to. YouTube's suppressing voices like mine with messages like mine. It's important that you guys support it just by clicking that subscribe button and then ringing the bell for notifications so that you don't miss any videos, you don't miss any live streams. We want you here. It's important that you join us, and we always want to hear what you have to say. Okay, so to begin with, this is how it all started. A book. The announcement of a book. The comic industry's toxic whisper network to be exposed in a new book, Generation Simone. And here you go. So this was announced by somebody by the name of Penny Parker. A Penny Parker expose. Let me explain something to you. Penny Parker is a pseudonym, and it's a pseudonym that's been worn by at least two different people, because the first Penny Parker, I knew who that person was. Not to brag, not to spill tea, but I knew who that person was. And they actually revealed a lot of stuff that was going on within these whisper networks. They had proof, they had screenshots, and they basically demonstrated that there's a lot of stuff going on in these whisper networks, specifically by Max Visaggio, this great revelation that she tried to bring down Scott Snyder. She was talking to other people within the whisper network there and just kind of saying, I'm not getting what I want from Scott Snyder. It was fascinating stuff. Now, that Penny Parker is not this Penny Parker. This Penny Parker, I don't know who they are, so I don't really trust them. I don't really know what they're doing. I'm not sure yet. So let me just tell you, I'm not behind this Penny Parker. I don't know what to expect from this person, and therefore I can't tell you whether this is even real. I have no idea. But the announcement of this book kind of sent off shockwaves everywhere, and some of those shockwaves. This is called obviously Generation Simone. Here we have Gail Simone, two writers in the mainstream comic book industry, Gail Simone and you got Kelly Sue DeConnick here. It's called The Rise of the Whisper Network. Very strange new breed of writer. Naming the book after Gail Simone. Obviously, Gail Simone has a ton of friends, especially on the left-wing aisle, the left-wing side of the aisle in comics. So they were, everybody kind of went into protective mode. It says the even stranger downfall of America's comic book industry. Now, here's the thing about that. Again, I don't know, what this book is. I don't even know if it's real. All I know is a lot of people kind of took it as a threat. And at some point on Twitter, Mark Millar was shown this book, I guess. But he confused it with something else. And so people got very, very upset with him. The whole reason why Mark Waid came out and went to war and was calling for Mark Millar's head, hypothetically, metaphorically speaking, was because he thought Mark Millar was supporting and promoting this book. In fact, we all did. That's certainly what it looks like. That's what it looked like. But Mark Millar has come out and clarified. He's like, what is this? What is this even about? Like, what are you talking about? He says, for sake, just when I think the American comic book industry can't get any more insane, look, the book I'm referring to is The Strange Death of American Comics, which is a UK music political journal friend, is writing about an obnoxious UK comic book blogger and his inner circle, and how they destroyed the thing that they love by spending 20 years chipping away at everyone they could working in the industry. His partner is a filmmaker, and she's going to make a documentary about the irony of people who professed to love something, ultimately destroying it. Boy, it really sounds like he's talking about Rich Johnson here, doesn't it? Really sounds like he's talking about Bleeding Cool. Not talking about Gail Simone. Not at all. I don't think he even knows what this book is. So he goes on to say, what has this got to do with Gail Simone? I have zero connection to Gail beyond knowing her a little 20 years ago, and she's always been very cordial. This is utter insanity. American comics is a playground. I wouldn't say playground, I'd say insane asylum. But yeah, he's like utterly baffled by this. The amount of pushback that he got for being confused, for having the book that he was referring to be confused with this other thing by Penny Parker is unreal. And I think it really kind of drove home like how serious this is. Again, step over the line, and these guys are ready to go to war. They're ready to go to war. It is unbelievable, and it is always true. Now, meanwhile, Mark Waid. It's difficult because we just keep referring to them as Marks, and it kind of gets this Mark and that Mark. He's a little confused. But let's talk about Mark Waid and what's going on over at his Facebook. He says, some guy says, it looks like there was a little bit of confusion about the book mentioned, and it wasn't the one pictured in the screenshot, so that's something. But he's still standing a little bit too close to the alt-right nonsense. Okay, understand, these people think Comicsgate is alt-right. They're insane. These people are absolutely insane. Mark is right about that. It is, I guess he's calling it a playground. I would call it an insane asylum. Mark Waid says, then he should bust his ass clarifying far and wide and tell us what the book he was referring to. This guy, Kendallland, says he tweeted that the book is The Strange Death of American Comics, but that seems to be the extent of any Why does he owe you any clarification? He knew what he meant. Even if he made a mistake with the book, I think it's too late. The damon's broken with regards to people. This guy right here, Beavis. Okay, that's fine. So he's kind of right. Like, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter. Like, the comic book industry fully exposed itself with this. Like, if somebody is going to do a book about the Whisper Network and actually name some names and make some allegations, those allegations better be true. That's the first thing. But if they are true, there's no legal recourse. Mark Waid was talking about raising money for a lawsuit. It's like, well, a couple things here. A, presumably what would be in the book would be true and backed up by evidence. And B, these are public figures. You're kind of allowed to sort of talk and say things like this about them. And C, who the hell are you going to sue? Penny Parker? Nobody knows who Penny Parker even is. You'd have to know who to direct the lawsuit to. And if it's a self-published project, I don't really understand what the goal of that would be. But in any case, that's how mad they were. They were talking about raising money for a lawsuit against a is that going to be my new thing? Not being able to pronounce words when I'm when I'm making a video. Pseudonymous. Forget it. Against somebody with a fake name. It's going to be pretty difficult to actually do that, in my opinion. I'm fairly sure. So Mark Waid says, what book was he even referring to? Okay, so this is here comes Joe Glass. He stated it's a book called The Strange Death of American Comics, which I can find nothing about online, though he did call it an upcoming book. From his description, it looks like it's a character assassination of Rich Johnson and Bleeding Cool. So guess I may be in this one too. Oh, I hope so, Joe. I hope so. Are you going to sue? Listen, here's the thing. One thing connects me and Mark Waid and Mark Millar, I think, is that we don't like Rich Johnson very much. So this is... honestly, if the book is called The Strange Death of American Comics and it's about how Rich Johnson ruined comics, we're going to be that meme with the two arms, like the arm wrestling meme from Over the Top. On that, we all probably agree. Joe Glass continues, though, as you say, that doesn't change the fact of how he's been cordial with the rhetoric he's been using, or make any effort to apologize or stop the hate and harassment being directed at numerous other people since this all kicked off. Again, Joe Glass is one of the biggest haters and harassers on the internet. This guy is in the Whisper Network. This guy does make plans to hurt people, and he likes it because his own life is terribly miserable. And Joe Glass, of course, playing the victim here, as he is one of the biggest victimizers in comics. It's very funny. Now, Mark Waid, with this new evidence, stepped forward, and he had this to say. He said, I am told that Gail Simone and Mark Millar have sorted out their issue. There was no issue. The issue was created by you, Mark Waid. It was created by. There was no issue between these two. You seem to have, taken a misunderstanding and blown it up and caused all of this chaos. And God only knows. Like, I hope everybody who was a fan of Gail and a fan of Mark, they know they get this sorted out. And I think Mark, this is Mark Waid. I think this is on you to clarify far and wide, as you said. Didn't you just say before, that Mark Millar then has the obligation to quote unquote bust his ass, clarifying far and wide, and let fans of both of these creators know exactly what actually happened and how it was your fault, your misunderstanding that spread this poison and upset everybody in the comic book industry who loves both of these creators. And that includes me, let me tell you. I've told Gail Sabota and Mark Millar have sorted out their issue, and I'm glad for Gail. Mark claims that he was promoting a book different than the one pictured, and, well, given the crowd he runs with these days. By the way, they're not going to let that go. Mark doesn't run with any crowd. Again, they're trying to poison him and push him away from even being civil with us. Like, he just said hello to me, like, publicly. Just, hey, what's up? That's it. That's now apparently that's the crowd. We're the crowd he runs with. Now, I wish he ran with us. I'd have him on my show. I'd really enjoy talking to Mark. I'm actually a big fan of his, and so on and so forth. But he doesn't do that. He kind of sees himself as comics papa here. He sees himself as overlooking the industry that he loves, and he's protective of it. And he's criticizing his children. And by the way, I think that includes me. I don't think Mark is thrilled with my behavior. He doesn't like the fact that I go in on things like this and talk about it. He'd rather everybody just kind of get along and work on the problems. Meanwhile, I see these people. I see Mark Waid and Joe Glass. I see these guys as the problem that kind of needs to be sorted out. First and foremost, these guys are the troublemakers. These are the ones that create chaos and strife. Mark is more worried about other things. So that's cool. Listen, all due respect to Mark Millar, seriously. Mark claims he was promoting a book different than the one pictured, and while given the crowd he runs with these days, that wasn't an unfair leap to make. Again, an implicit. I know that people are like, Ethan, your definition of what a threat is and isn't is different than mine. Understand that this message is filled with subliminal messages to Mark. In other words, stop associating with, being kind to, acknowledging our enemies. Stop doing that right now. And considering that you are not doing that right now, that's a little bit of a normal leap for us to make, that you're an antagonist who is out to destroy people creators who other people love in this business. Right now, we might make more trouble for you unless you change who it is that you're running with. It wasn't unfair of us to leap to this conclusion and attack you and kind of make life difficult for you for a week. Mark says Gail chooses to believe him. Well, is Mark Waid, is Mark Millar a liar? Why do you say chooses to believe him? He came out and he explained what he was talking about and was alarmed and sickened by whatever it is that you thought that he meant. So what, you don't, so Gail believes him, so you're going to believe him because of Gail? Like, okay, why not believe him because you believe him? Because you believe in Mark? See, understand, this is the kind of weird poison that goes on with Mark. But it gets better. Mark continues to cope and seethe. It's possible to call someone out for encouraging a hate mob to buy a book vilifying Gail Simone and to acknowledge that the traditional mainstream comics industry is having a rough go of it right now. It's not hard to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. I've turned off comments on the previous thread and this one. Blocking and deleting trolls became exhausting. I wish you had, turned off comments when they were all in support of you building a hate mob. It's funny how that works. Like, comments are welcome and encouraged, and hundreds of them accumulate when Mark Waid is trying to build a hate mob against one of his fellow creators who has stepped out of line. Then comments are welcome. The moment Mark is called on this and he's been exposed as the clown that he is, now it's time to turn off comments. We can't hear anyone. Why? We're not going to hear anything that reminds us of the fact that we were silly about this and that we caused another a series of problems for another one of our creators. And again, he says the same thing, but in different words. It isn't hard to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. Superhero comic sales are in trouble, and saving them by allying with the alt-right isn't a great solution are not mutually exclusive statements. Stating the latter does not proclaim the former to be false. All right. Mark, you're insane. We are not the alt-right. That's something that you struggle with, calling people white supremacists, people who disagree with you. We're just regular people who can see what you're doing. You guys are the radical left. Everybody who is not the radical left appears to be the radical right to you. But see, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Most of us, I think, could be considered to be just regular conservatives, Republicans. Some of us are even liberals. A few of those, just normal people who aren't obsessed with destroying the lives of others. Non-cancel pigs. So I think you could kind of rephrase this by saying, saving them by allying with non-cancel pigs. That would be everybody except for you and your friends. Everybody except for you, non-cancel pigs. And I think you should. I think cancel pigs should repent, change their ways, and ally with non-cancel pigs to save the comic book industry. That just makes sense. And here we go. Mark again. Mark Waid. Once again, coping and seething with his embarrassment as he now changes his tune. And now suddenly all of these people are acknowledging that the comic book industry is in trouble. Heidi McDonald, you hear that? Mark Waid is saying that what you're saying is not true. The comics are not doing better than ever. Mainstream superhero comics industry, which, by the way, is the only comic book industry that we're concerned with, okay? I understand there are other comic books out there in Japan. I understand that there's something called a YA novel, these little books that are kind of comic book-y, like Captain Underpants, Dog Man, all these books that are kind of like comic books. We don't sell those. We don't make money off of those. And therefore, we don't care how successful they're doing. We don't care about their success. We care about Spider-Man. We care about Superman. We care about, all of the books that are traditional superhero comics that have kept this industry afloat for almost 100 years. And it was our responsibility to keep it that way for another 100 years. And it looks like we're failing. A lot of people were in denial about this, but Mark Waid here is essentially calling Heidi McDonald a liar when he says mainstream superhero comics industry is having a rough time of it lately. Few people are saying otherwise. One of those people is Heidi McDonald and her branch of the Whisper Network. She seems to have taken on the role of minister of propaganda of the woke comic book industry. She's out there just lying and implying and just saying that everything's just fine. And she's got a group of people who agree with her, a group of pros who also hang out with Mark Waid. Here's Mark Waid really kind of leaving that reservation for the first time. He says steps need to be taken. And even the alt-right loudmouths make some good points. Woo! Now, I know he just means us. When he says alt-right loudmouths, he means everyone who is not a cancel pig. So that's how you have to hear it. You have to go, wait a second. If I'm somebody who isn't a cancel pig, who has said comics really suck lately, here's Mark Waid. And comics are in trouble. Here's Mark Waid acknowledging that you're right. It's about time, Mark. Mark, it's about time that you humbled yourself to my POV, my point of view, the point of view of Richard C. Myers, the point of view of Captain Cummings, remember Phil Cummings? All of these guys, Englentine, Unranked Chevron, who are some of the old Nerdettes Newsstand. It's a pleasure to lump Nerdette in with this. It's about time that you acknowledge how right we've been this whole time. I like that. I appreciate it. Then he goes, but when make better comics becomes make more comics that are to my own personal taste, that's a solution I can't get behind. Mark, you are behind that solution. You understand your entire crusade has been about acknowledging that there are people out there that are like, I don't need more comics that are better. I need more comics that look like I'm in them. I need you to draw characters that look like me. And by the way, largely that audience is imaginary. That exists in your head, that people are thinking, I need more comics with characters that look like me. really hasn't historically been true. To the extent that diversity is a consideration, it already exists in comics, especially in books like X-Men, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen it. This is not something that needed to be fixed. It was just a means for people like you to gain power. But yeah, make more comics that are to my own personal taste has been the crusade of SJWs like yourself since 2014 or so, since 2011 or 12 when Heidi McDonald stood up and told Dan DiDio that there need to be more women in comics. He needs to hire more women. Dan DiDio had whittled the percentage of women actually making comics at DC down to 1%, from 11% to 1%. He did that. What a great man. Why? Because he said, we're hiring the best people. And it became a conversation about how there still need to be more women in spite of this. Dan DiDio said, we're looking for the best people. So the best people are women. Evidently not. This is where we are today. Mainstream industry is having a rough time of it lately, and it's because, in my opinion, Dan DiDio listened to woke jackasses and jackassettes like Heidi McDonald and just started hiring based on gender and skin color and sexual preference rather than talent. Again, that's why we are where we are today. Those reasons. Why? Because people wanted to make more comics that are to my own personal taste. As far as I know, the comics that brought us here were to all of our personal tastes, I thought. I thought we were all enjoying comics together at one point. What happened? Something changed. Very bizarre, Mark. Badly produced comics sure aren't helping, and there are a bunch out there, but neither is pretending that a bad superhero comic is some new phenomenon. As somebody who's been reading them for nearly 60 years, I promise you that many of the ones you remember with nostalgic fondness just because you liked them as a middle schooler were just as bad compared to the actual classics of the day. That's nice, Mark. Just because you and your friends don't like something doesn't automatically make it empirically bad. I want you to write this on your forehead backwards, Mark, and then look at yourself in the mirror. Read it to yourself every morning. I understand that you and your friends don't like the stuff that was popular, the stuff that was selling. When people were making a whole lot of money, you call it bad. You've got different ideas. You want more books that emphasize race, homosexuality. You want to praise homosexuality all day long. You want more women. I understand all this. But the stuff that was actually selling, just because you don't like it, doesn't make it bad. It makes it sellable. It's profitable. It's popular. There's a reason. The word popular. This is what we should be seeking out when it comes to the superhero comic book industry. Not all comics, but superhero comic book industry should be based on popularity. People enjoying the the majority of people who want to buy comic books. That's the market that we should be seeking after. And I understand that's not a thing. And of course, Mark is getting more and more comments about this, so he continues to cope and seethe for the foreseeable future. Anyone who starts a sentence with the words, "the problem with comics is," as if there's only one problem and it can be fixed with a magic bullet, you're about to present, "You can find me in the backyard next to the wood chipper." So here's Mark. Mark now wants to kill people who want to save comics. Mark is very upset about this, and he's struggling for anything to hold on to. Now the only solution is just one. Now he's basically saying there's only one solution that these people are presenting. One solution, and that just isn't true, Mark. We're not people who are looking for one last solution here, despite what you and your friends say about us. There are multitudes of solutions here, many of them, and happy to get involved in that. Happy to help. I'm here to help this whole thing. I want you to understand. And finally, Mark Waid sputters to a halt where he says, here come the trolls. Even on Blue Sky. So we got him on Blue Sky too. I love it. Mark Millar claims he was promoting a book different than the one pictured, and while given the crowd he runs with these days, that wasn't an unfair leap of logic to make. Gail chooses to believe him. I jumped to a logical conclusion. Sorry. Oh, I love it. Here's an apology from Mark Waid. He says, sorry. Are you happy? Yes, I am, Mark. I couldn't be happier. Thank you so much for a fun week. I really thoroughly enjoyed making videos and chronicling this whole event. And I like anytime you do stuff like this where it ends up making you look silly. I enjoy that as well. As somebody who's known you for decades, I love it. It never stops being funny to me and fun. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Listen, if you did, and you made it this far, 25 minutes, that's a 25-minute video. Wow, that's a lot. Please do like, share it, obviously subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications, and consider backing my new comic book, Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination. The link is below in the description. Love you guys. Thank you for your support, and thank you for helping me make comic books. And maybe that is the only one solution, is for us. There it is, Comicsgate, to make comics. Let's go.